Okay, when you're trying to figure this stuff out, now I use a JTech 44 watt laser that attaches to my CNC machine. And I had no idea where to start, so I was listening to some videos online, and I heard them using some crazy numbers like 2,000 or 3,000 millimeters. And I had no idea what they were talking about. So I did some checking online. What I found out, since my CNC machine uses inches per minute, that's the way I'm going to stay. So 1 millimeter per second equals 2.362 inches per minute. If you want to run millimeters per minute, that equals 0.30394 inches a minute. So you have to do some math trying to figure out where to start with your speeds. And I had a heck of a time, but once I started figuring out some of this stuff, what I did, now this is what I believe they call Luon board. It is 4.5 millimeters thick, or approximately 0.15 inches thick. So I started out with about 50% power, and in Lightburn they have a materials burn test that you can set up. So I started out at about 50% power and went up to 80% power. And then my speed, I started out at about 500 inches a minute. And I started to burn it, and I noticed that it was burning quite a bit down at this end. It was getting kind of deep into the wood, so I stopped this one. The next one I did, a thing called fill and offset happened to be turned on, so that's why you see these X's in here. So I jumped my speed up to 700 inches a minute and went up to 790 inches per minute. And again, my percentage of power is 55 to 100. And it turned out pretty good, but with the X's in it, it kind of screwed me up. So this was another burn that I did. I tried going down to 600, between 600 and 690 inches per minute. And then my percentage of power was only 25% to 75%. So I thought it'd give me a little bit wider range. And from there, I could dial it in a little bit. So then I came up with one more burn that is 700 to 790 inches per minute, and from 55% power up to 100% power. And you can run your fingers across these and kind of feel how deep they are. But what you're looking at is the color differences. So these numbers should get you into an area that you can start doing your own burns and your own tests on the different materials. Like I said, this is only approximate. I think it's 4.5 millimeters thick, or about 0.15 inches thick, or real close to a 5/32 inch piece of wood. It is a type of plywood. You can see it has like 3 layers to it, and I believe they call it Luon. So after I got some of my burns done, I wanted to figure out what it was going to take to cut through the board. So I set this test up, and it was 55% power up to 100% power. And the speed on it is only 18 inches a minute up to about 26 inches a minute. has to be a lot slower in order to cut through the board. It cut through in a single pass. So this will give you some of your own numbers to start messing with. And you don't have to do as much guessing as I had to. When you do burn through things, you want to stay up closer to these numbers up here, because the further away you get from that, the more burn and the more charcoal you're going to have on here. And a lot of that has to do with whether you're using air assist or not. Now, this did have, all these cuts had air assist on them. It was turned on. So then my son decided to get me some leather patches that he wanted to put on his hat. So I went to Hobby Lobby and got some pieces of leather and stapled those down to a piece of board and started doing my burn tests on these. And these were pretty faint. These were way too fast and not enough power. So we can skip over these. This one right here is 45% up to 85% power, and from 200 inches a minute up to 300 inches a minute. And I thought that was a little slow because it was burning into this leather pretty good. So I went to a faster speed. I went to 400 to 500 inches a minute. And again, it's 45% power to about 85% power. And these turned out a lot better. But I wanted to try one more. So I also tried this one, which is 300 to 400 inches a minute, and from 45 to 85. And you can feel them. You can see what kind of imprint they leave in the leather. But these will give you some numbers to start from for your burn tests instead of going out and guessing. And then later on in the video, I'll show you what a slight difference, as little as 50 inches a minute, can make when you're actually burning some leather. The 500, I believe it's 500 inches a minute burnt through it, where the 450 inches a minute turned out just right. But that'll be further on down in the video. So I just wanted to give you some numbers, let you start playing with your 44 watt J-Tech laser and stop being so frustrated trying to find the numbers that I went through. Now, if you look at this patch, you can see this area right in here is actually starting to burn through the patch. And I believe this one was set at 500 inches per minute for this patch. And I'll show you what the other patch looks like. Now, if you look at this patch in that same area, it's not burning through. And all I did was drop it down from 500 inches per minute to 450 inches per minute. It was the same burn strength, which is 45%. So when you start trying to do some of these leather things, those are some good numbers to start with, about 45% and somewhere close to 500 inches per minute. And again, this is for the 44 watt J-Tech laser that attaches to your CNC machine. Now, if you look at this one patch, you can see how high up it is compared to the bottom portion. And that's because I forgot to look for that little green dot. When you're doing these graphics and putting them together and getting ready to burn them, there's a little green dot usually in the lower left corner, but you can move it wherever you want. But I forgot that it was actually in a position that would have put it down. Normally I line it up about right here and everything turns out right in the middle. But this time the dot would have been down in this area somewhere. So that's why I pushed it all the way up to the top like that, where you can see with this patch how much more centered it is and how much better it turned out. So again, look for that green dot. There are ways of going around changing where that is. And once I get into some of the Lightburn software, I'll point this out for you so you can know what to look for and not end up having to burn extra patches when you don't need to. So I hope this helps you out some.